Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. Over me. Yeah. Before I be unsaved, I'll be buried in my own grave and go home to my Lord and be free. No more weeping, don't you know? No more weeping. No more weeping over me. And before I be unsaved, I'll be buried in my own grave. Go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom.
Once again, thank you all for being in attendance for this afternoon's presentation. We will now have Mr. Rylan Allen, our mentor with the Minority Mentor Program, to give us our welcome.
All right. Greetings, esteemed guests, fellow students, faculty, staff, and distinguished alumni. My name is Rylan Allen, and I am a mentor for the Minority Mentor Program. And it is my pleasure to welcome you to the annual Martin Luther King Jr. Living the Dream ceremony. With this program, we like to honor the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King with reverence, gratitude, and service. I'm reminded of a quote by Dr. King that I'm paraphrasing that says, "Everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You only need a heart full of love." I believe that this embodies our distinguished honorees and our speaker of the hour, and hope it encourages our students to hold fast to your ability to not only serve, but to lead in love. This event this afternoon is co-sponsored by the Minority Mentor Program and the Office of Diversity and Inclusion Initiatives. The Minority Mentor Program, or MMP, at Mercer University is designed to give minority students the opportunity to connect and feel a part of the Mercer community. The purpose of this program is to provide social encouragement and academic support to participants. The mission of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion Initiatives is to cultivate a holistic learning environment dedicated to diversity and inclusion in every evolving global society. On behalf of the Minority Mentor Program and the Office of Diversity and Inclusion Initiatives, I'd like to welcome you to the program. And now we will have Ms. Nicole Small come up and give the occasion.
Thank you, Rylan. Today marks the fourth annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Living the Dream March and Program. We use this sacred time not only to honor Dr. King's legacy in the fight for civil rights, but to reflect on our current struggle to obtain human rights and liberties for all in this community, our nation, and the world. We march today in solidarity and silence as Mercerians to symbolize the historic March on Washington held on August 28, 1963. Ironically, in August of 1963, Mercer University became the first college in Georgia to desegregate voluntarily with the admission of Mr. Sam Oney. Furthermore, at homecoming last year, 2 years ago, we celebrated the 50th anniversaries of the class of 1970 and 1971. The class of 1970 was Mercer's first fully integrated class. In 2023, we look forward to the 60th anniversary of integration at Mercer University. However, in recent years, we are still bearing witness to oppression, discrimination, racism, sexism, terrorism, and even the death of many Americans, especially those that are people of color. As I stand here today in 2022, I can only think of Dr. King's iconic "I Have a Dream" speech at the same March on Washington in 1963. 59 years later, I think it's time to continue to honor Dr. King's legacy, dream, and teachings more than ever. Dr. King stated the words that echo true today. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Today is the day we must begin to break our silence, because the ultimate measure of a man, woman, or person is not where they stand in moments of comfort and convenience, but where they stand at times of challenge and controversy. We have witnessed Mercerians stand in times of controversy in solidarity for one another when we've had over 400 of you all march with us in September of 2020 during the Equal Justice March and Vigil. We must, 2 years later, continue to stand and advocate. We must continue to be co-conspirators in the fight for equity, access, and social justice if we truly want to be committed to changing the world. Today, we must embrace change, equality, and freedom for all. Thank you. Oh, if we could all stand, please. Sang choir.
Every voice I sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Blazing rising sun of our day begun. Let us march on till the dream is won. Only the road we trot, hear the chastening rod, felt in the days when home unborn had died, yet with the city has not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed. We have from the past till now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is stand. God of our weary, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us far on the way, thou who hast by thy mind led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places our God where we be. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget. We shadowed beneath thy hand, may we forever stand true to our God, true to our native land.
You may now be seated. At this time, we're going to take a moment to break the silence with Dr. Martin Luther King.
Mr. Bell, members of the faculty and members of the student body of this great institution of learning, ladies and gentlemen, I've asked several things to talk about before the law, the concern, and kick off. Today I would like to talk to you about roots and violence, the rest right out. We'll talk about Vietnam. I'd like to use the subject from which to speak of America. And I use this subject because there are literally two Americas. One America is that our nation has constantly taken a positive step forward on the question of racial justice and racial equality. But over and over again, at the same time, it made certain backward steps. And this has been the persistence of the so-called white backlash. In 1863, the Negro was freed from the bondage of physical slavery. But at the same time, the nation refused to give him land to make that freedom meaningful. And at that same period, America was giving millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that America was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor that would make it possible to grow and develop. And refused to give that economic floor to its black peasants, so to speak. This is why Frederick Douglass could say that emancipation for the Negro was freedom to hunger, freedom to the winds and rains of heaven, freedom without roofs to cover their heads. He went on to say that it was freedom without bread to eat, freedom without land to cultivate, it was freedom and famine at the same time. But it does not stop there. In 1875, the nation passed the Civil Rights Bill. and refused to enforce it. In 1964, the nation passed a weaker civil rights bill. And even to this day, that bill has not been totally enforced in all of its dimensions. The nation heralded a new day of concern for the poor, for the poverty-stricken, for the disadvantaged, and brought into being a poverty bill. But at the same time, it put such little money into the program that it was hardly and still remains hardly a good skirmish against poverty. White politicians until their talk eloquently against open housing, and in the same breath contend that they are not racist. All of this and all of these things tell us that America has been backlashing on the whole question of basic constitutional and God-given rights for Negroes and other disadvantaged groups for more than 300 years. So these conditions, the systems of widespread poverty, slums, and of tragic conditions in schools and other areas of life, all of these things have brought about a great deal of despair and a great deal of desperation, a great deal of disappointment and even bitterness in the Negro community. Today, all of our cities confront huge problems. All of our cities are potentially poverty as a result of the continued existence of these conditions. Many in moments of anger, many in moments of deep bitterness, engage in riots. Let me say, as I've always said, and I will always continue to say, that riots are socially destructive and self-defeating. I'm still convinced that non-violence is the most potent weapon available to oppress people in their struggle for freedom and justice. I feel that violence will only create more social problems than they will solve. That in a real sense it is impractical for the Negro to think of mounting a violent revolution in the United States. So I will continue to condemn riots and continue to say to my brothers and sisters that this is not the way. Continue to affirm that there is another way. But at the same time, it is as necessary for me to be as vigorous in condemning the conditions which cause persons to feel that they must engage in riotous activities as it is to be to condemn riots. I think America must see that riots do not develop out of thin air. Certain conditions continue to exist in our society, which must be condemned as vigorously as we condemn riots. In the final analysis, a riot is the language of the unheard. What is it that America has failed to hear? It has failed to hear that the fight in the Negro War has worsened over the last few years. It has failed to hear promises of freedom and justice have not been met. It has failed to hear that large segments of white society are more concerned about tranquility in the status quo than about justice, equality, and humanity. And so in a real sense, our nation's some of the riots are caused by our nation's winters of delay. As long as America postpones justice, we stand in the position of having these recurrences of violence and riots over and over again. Social justice and progress are the absolute guarantors of riot prevention. And the time has come for America to hear the truth about this tragic war. I've chosen to preach about the war in Vietnam today because I agree with Dante that the hottest places in hell are reserved for those who, in a period of moral crisis, maintain their neutrality. There comes a time when silence is betrayal, even when pressed by the demands of inner truth. Men do not easily assume the task of opposing their government's policy, especially in time of war. Now, of course, one of the difficulties in speaking out today grows out of the fact that there are those who are seeking to equate dissent with disloyalty.
At this time, we're going to have Miss Ashton Mayo Beavers to come and deliver the introduction of speaker.
Hello, my name is Ashton Mayo Beavers. I'm a mentor for the Minority Mentor Program. And I have the pleasure today to be introducing our keynote speaker, Ms. Shanita Davis. Shanita Davis is a native of Macon-Bibb County. She is the founder and CEO of the People's Advocacy Group Incorporated, a local nonprofit committed to civic engagement, community accountability, citizens' rights, and restoring cultural identity. Ms. Davis has over 18 years of combined experience in workforce development, social services, customer relations, and criminal justice. She is the owner of Infinite Solutions and Consultant Services. Ms. Davis is a sought-after speaker and consultant for community organizing, racial equity, workforce development, leadership, and professional development. Ms. Davis holds a Bachelor of Social Science degree from Mercer University and a Master of Divinity from McPhee School of Theology. She is the recipient of the 2020 Griffith Bell Award for Community Service, Mercer's highest award of achievement. Ms. Davis is also a graduate of Leadership Macon, class of 2015, as well as a graduate of the Congressional Black Caucus Leadership Institute 2018. She is a member of Bibb Mount Zion Church and serves as the Director of Community Engagement. Ms. Davis has combined her passion, talent, and skills to inspire the lives of others through her testimony. Her life's mission is to improve the quality of life for those in her community through disrupting systems of oppression. Please help me welcome Ms. Davis.
Thank you, Ashton. I almost didn't come up. It sounds like it's talking about somebody else. Well, first of all, thank you. And I say greetings to everyone here, especially to the faculty, to the staff, students, President Underwood, along with a special thanks to Ms. Artis and Dr. Booker, along with the Minority Mentor Program in the Office of Diversity and Inclusion and Initiatives. It is a great, great honor to be here today. And I'm gonna do this without crying. How about that? I feel it already. We're gonna do that without crying. I am to be a part of this 4th annual Martin Luther King Living the Dream I can't express it enough of how honored and privileged I feel to be here and to share with you all today as a double alum, as Ms. Ashton mentioned. Very exciting. But the way I wanted to start this off today, I wanted to do something just a little bit different, because I know oftentimes we come to Dr. King events and we hear a speech or we hear a presentation or we march or we do things like we did today. But I wanted to do it a little bit different in hopes to inspire you when you leave this room to not let this just be a day, but this be a mark in your life where a transformation took place and you left from this place and you wanted to be a part of the change that actually needs to happen within our country and within our world. So just to give you a little bit of my background, as Ashton mentioned, I am a native of Macon-Bibb County, and I grew up in this community, this wonderful community that I do love so very much. I am the oldest of 3 children that was raised by my mom and my stepdad. So I would say a 2-parent household, 2 income. Had a wonderful childhood, enjoyed doing typical childhood things. I am 5 years older than my sister and 6 years older than my brother. So I had the wonderful opportunity to be an only child for a while, and I loved it every minute, every minute of it. And then around the age of 11, 12, my family was kind of thrown into situational poverty. That happens when individuals go through life circumstances that kind of disrupts their household and it creates a poverty situation in their lives. And that situation for me was my mom and my stepdad struggled with the illness of drug addiction. And that turned our life upside down. And of course, as you can imagine, the next few years was kind of tough on our family as they battled through this illness. And there was a rippling effect for not only me, but those that were around us and connected to our family as well. But for me personally, I was the oldest and I felt a responsibility, especially if anyone was raised by their grandmother, had their grandmother, and you were the only child. That means, like they used to say in the country, you had old folks sense. I mean, you're a lot more mature for your age. So I wanted to step in and I wanted to do something. So I started working at a local restaurant at the age of 14 by lying on a job application and saying I was 16 years old because I wanted to help to take care of my siblings while my parents were struggling through their illness. But the pressure, as you can imagine, of being a young teenager and having younger siblings, and it was just too much. And I started to do what other teenagers start to do. I started to run away. I started to get in trouble. I started to act out. And so by the time of age 15, I had my first child. And by 19, I was a high school dropout and the mother of 4 young males. I had experienced many of the ills that still impact our society today: depression, mental health, suicidal ideations, homelessness, a need for affordable housing, hunger, food insecurity, low wages, poverty. And now here I stand. I'm gonna tell my age now if anybody start calculating. And now here I stand, almost 36 years later from where that disruption took place in my life, in my childhood. And I wanted to start this conversation this way about the life and legacy of the Reverend, and I do say Reverend because I am a McAfee Master of Divinity student. Most of the time we always leave that out, but the life and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, by sharing this information about my background, because it gives me a different perspective. It gives me a different lens on how I view his life, how I view his work. And I say that to you because as I look around this room, everyone, there are many different ethnicities, races, age, background that are represented in this room as well in the virtual space. And that also gives you a lens on how you see or view the work that has taken place. Your knowledge, your participation, and your understanding of his work is all different. If we was to go around this room and take a poll right now and ask you, what do you think about Dr. King? What's the most impactful thing? I guarantee you that each one of us would probably have something different to say. But although it's different, it is very valuable to ensuring we are continuously pursuing to live the dream he prophetically declared before he left this earth. So every year in January, millions of people of diverse backgrounds, ethnicities, socioeconomic statuses, all pause and reflect over the life of Dr. King through different types of events and acts of service. And most times it's often the highlight reels of his life that are most remembered, such as the bus boycott in Montgomery, Alabama, that was started by African-American residents who were already politically organized long before Rosa Parks was arrested. You see, the Rosa Parks situation was the right time to implement a strategy and apply pressure to get the local segregation laws changed. It was the right moment in time. And the political council president, Ms. Joanne Robinson, at the time called for the boycott on December the 5th, 1955. Dr. King's participation along with other leaders helped take the movement from a one-day boycott to a 381-day constitutional ruling ending segregation on the Montgomery buses. It sparked a national movement. And it was at this time and at this place that Dr. King became known as a national voice after this movement. And I asked myself, as I've reflected over his life many times, even in my childhood, I can remember hearing his speeches and hearing about and reading about him and wanting to teach my younger brother at the time who was attending daycare. I wanted to teach him one of the speeches so he could do the speech in daycare. So I have always been drawn to him. I was like, you can do it. You're going to say it when you get there. Let's practice as I walk him to daycare. It was important to me and I was just drawn to him. But as an adult, I asked myself, why? Why did he get involved? Why did he take this time in this moment to say, I have to do something. I have to participate in it. See, because Dr. King at this time had just gotten married, is ordained, he received his PhD. He is the new pastor of the Dexter Street Baptist Church. Many in his same position would not have wanted to and did not get involved. Why risk it? Because you got to understand we're in the deep South at this particular time. And many things were taking place and threats were taking place. So why get involved? I'm sure that when he first got involved, that he could not have imagined that from this, it would spark a national movement all across this country, and that this moment would rewrite our history forever, that we are still partaking of the action and the work that he actually done from that moment. Although he may not have known that, but I'm sure he was well aware of the risk. Even after the Montgomery boycott was successful and desegregation of the bus system took place in Montgomery, he still chose to participate after his house was bombed. And I asked myself, why? Why? Because that's a question that each one of us need to ask ourselves. Why? Why would I get involved in any of the things that are taking place right now? Because as I just described, he was comfortable in his life. He had a job, he had a family, he had a house, he had a congregation, he had Atlanta where his father was back home. Why get involved? involved? Why get involved? And as I asked this question and I painted this picture, it's because, like I said, we are living in a time where we must ask ourselves that very question. And Dr. Cornel West, in his book, Radical King, he talks about a letter that Dr. King wrote to his fiance at the time, Coretta Scott. And in the letter, Dr. King tells her he is not a conventional Baptist minister and that he believes in the social gospel. It's not just enough to save souls, but we need to change society so that souls will have a chance. He goes on to say that ignoring people's needs is wrong. He describes himself as more of a socialist in his economic theory than a capitalist. And this was 1952. This was before any of the Montgomery boycotts. Before that, when he was a student at Morehouse, he had wrote a couple of editorials about the mistreatment of individuals in our country. As you can see, this was the foundational belief that it was for Dr. King, that people should be treated right. And I want to add this more on a personal level. What is your foundational belief about people? Because we all marched in together, right? We are all uplifting this moment. But what is your foundational belief about your classmate, about your neighbor, about the faculty you work with, about the students that you serve, about the neighbor next door, about the person that you saw on the news, about the homeless individuals or those that experienced in homelessness when they were arrested and their pictures plastered all over social media? What is your foundational belief about people? Another aspect that I would add, and what I love and inspired me more to become involved in social justice work over the last 4 to 5 years, by raising his voice and using his influence, Dr. King was able to get America to look at herself. Television highlighted the vicious brutality of what was happening in America every day, but we just didn't see it. Television showed us the dogs, the water hoses, the billy clubs, the lynching, the KKK, the riot mobs, targeting Black and brown communities. From Emmett Till to Bloody Sunday, we will never forget what we saw. And although they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, still many were not moved because they did not view individuals as human beings, as precious souls that deserved a chance, like Dr. King mentioned. Now, can we fast forward to the 21st century of where we are right now? Social media and the invention of the smartphone has revealed the torture and torment that continues in the lives of Black and brown and oppressed individuals in our society. Not just in America, but all over the globe, from human trafficking to world hunger, to suffering, to blatant murder right before our eyes. I could talk another 30 minutes about the atrocities that we have seen and experienced, but I want to highlight 2 incidents, one locally and one viewed nationally, that changed my life forever. You see, I was in the first year of seminary, and I had the opportunity to be a part of the Samuel DeWitt Proctor Conference. And that year, it was the 50th anniversary of the sanitation workers being killed and the movement. And we were in Memphis, Tennessee, and we got a chance and an opportunity to tour, go through the Lorraine Hotel. Very impactful moment that I would never forget. I wasn't involved in social justice work then. I didn't even know social justice ministry was a thing, because it's not something that's very prominent here in Macon and Bibb County, that we have social justice ministries. Then we have some now, but still not on the level that I had seen or that I had read about. And so I came back from that trip, and I was actually sitting there and writing a paper, and a notification came up on my phone that residents of a local housing community were being asked to leave their residence. Families on a Friday afternoon being asked to leave their home. And I watched that notification. I hit the Facebook Live and it came up. And I saw the news people and I saw people running around scattering and trying to find out what they were going to do. It was 4:30. And in my mind, because of my background and because of my experience and things that I have lived through personally and because of individuals who I have worked with, I thought to myself, well, what about those children? What about the other things that are needed? What about the people that are at work? What about that? They don't even know what's happening right now. And from there, I got up and got in my car and drove over to the location. And when I got there, it was a scene that I would never forget. People were crying. And I want you to understand, this is not public housing. This is fair market rent. 1-bedroom apartment, $675. 3-bedroom apartment, $1,200. And because a slumlord, I'm gonna use the right word, that didn't live in our community had not taken care of the property, caused the property to be condemned and those individuals being asked to leave. What touched my heart was a young lady that had 8 children. I saw my local elected official almost with tears in their eyes because the only solution they came up with was go to the Salvation Army. And because I have stayed at the Salvation Army before, I asked, I said, anybody called over to see how many beds are available? Because this was 60 families. How many beds are available? Nobody had called. The young lady said, I'm okay. We can sleep in my car. 8 children. The oldest probably was 9, and they go down to a baby from there. And I said, we have to do something. And a couple of friends of mine, we went to Facebook and we decided to ask for money. And people started to give. And we were able to place 30 families in hotels for 33 days. We took care of them. It brings tears to my eyes right now because of the silence in my community. I could not believe that people were not more upset, that people were being placed outdoors with nowhere to go. But what happened was, it was in a low-income community. The Salvation Army was the perfect solution, although nobody called to see how many beds were available. It's Friday. Many people were still at work. It was the silence of churches that broke my heart. But it was the resiliency of those that were less fortunate and did not have that contributed $5, that contributed $10, that we began to take care of each other as a community. And I bring this to you is because I was just one person sitting at home and decided I gotta do something. We raised almost $34,000 to take care of those individuals. The bill got up to almost $2,000 per day. That include food, they needed food. But as a unit, we were able to do that together. The second thing that I will mention was May 25th, 2020. I was born May 25th. That's my birthday. Wonderful day, or so I thought, until I turned on the news and saw the live killing of George Floyd. I could not believe that that was actually taking place. I could not believe that there were actually strangers that were begging and pleading for his life. I'm thinking of Dr. King. I'm thinking of our great civil rights leaders. I'm thinking of all of the hard work that they had done. And in this moment, we are watching someone kill another person while it's recorded and we can see it. Changed my life forever. See, because after Crystal Lake, I didn't let that just become one incident. That's how I started the People's Advocacy Group. because those individuals were evicted from those properties, and they're still having the residual effects of loan people and bill collectors asking them for the rent when they were put out due to no fault of their own. So I decided, let's get more people civically involved. Let's make sure African-American people, Black people, brown people in our community know that you have a voice and you need to use it. Your voice is in who you elect, because who you elect makes the laws that you live by. So you need to get to the poll. And you need to be educated about who you get to the poll, who you elect. And once they're in office, you need to hold them accountable to what they said that they would do. So we were able to increase the Black vote at every precinct by double digits by partnering with other local activists and organizers. Every precinct had an increase in the Black vote. So I was on that high. We did a great thing. And then we see George Floyd. And then we see Ahmaud Arbery. And bring it all the way up to now. We all sat in anxiety and anticipation, waiting on the verdict. We all did. We didn't know what was going to happen. Why? Because the history of our country shows that things can happen to Black and brown people and there is no accountability. But Dr. King was one that said, I got to take my voice and I got to take my influence, and it's worth the risk, because souls and individuals are worth the risk. And I say that to you today because I'm looking at the next generation of leaders in this room. And not only the next generation of leaders, but those that influence the minds of the leaders of the next generation. Having gone through this wonderful institution and all of the things that it has to offer, it still has a shaded and jaded past that we're not proud of. I highly recommend and encourage for you to listen to Mr. Sam Oney and his story, if you have not heard it, of what happened at our beautiful institution here. But even us sitting here as students and faculty, we can all attest even to times that we've been in class and uncomfortable situations have come up. Microaggressions is real. The abuse and things that take place in the classroom, whether intentional or unintentional, does not minimize the harm that it has on us as people. We have to become one another's keepers. We have to do as Dr. King did. I have to see you as human. I have to see you as valuable. And when you hurt, I hurt. I can't go back into my silo. Well, that's their life. Or as many did, even though we saw it, we saw George Floyd scream for his mother while he gasped for air. And individuals still said, let's wait till the evidence comes out. We don't have the full story. It's something wrong in our society when that happens. But it was young people just like you sitting in this room that decided we're gonna do something. And right now, as laws and legislation and things are being changed and overturned that make it harder, because I was out there. I serve 26 rural counties right now. It does make a difference if the drop box is on the inside or outside of the building. It makes a difference if I had to drive 20 miles and I already have a job. And my employer says there is no time off. We need regulation changes, and it's important. Each of you have a gift in this room. You have a contribution to make. Dr. King said this, and it's so powerful. It is not the voices of my enemy that I will remember. It is the silence of my friends. You can't say that you care about me or that you're worried about my future. And you see the systemic oppression and things that are desperately hurting our lives and hurting our communities right now. Lack of health care, learning loss, It's poor communities that don't have access to broadband. When they go home, the homeschool, everybody doesn't have a computer. Everybody doesn't have internet. So how far will I be behind? What accommodations are being made for that? And so we say great things like, well, that wasn't me, or that was somebody else, as we try to erase history and we call it other divisive things. This is the reality and the truth of what has happened in our country. And I stand here as a person who was affected by some of the ugly things that could take place. My mom is here. I love my mom so much. She's a beautiful soul. Such a beautiful soul. But my mom cried out for help when she was sick. There was not systems in place to help my mom. We had a war on drugs. We had 3 strikes and you're out. And now it's an opiate crisis, and now we open it up to millions of dollars in funds being available. We need equality and equity. Equality and equity. Your prosperity can't be in my pain. It can't be in my oppression. I hope that you leave this place today and that you say, I will amplify my voice. It's the reason why I tell my story. It's the reason why I share it. It's the reason why I go door to door and knock on people's door and make sure that they understand the power of their voice, because we've been silenced. We've gotten familiar with death and tragedy and lack and oppression and student loan debt. Can we throw that out? It's a crisis. It is a crisis. Do you know right now, and I'm gonna go ahead and close it out right here, but do you know that there's a housing crisis right here in Macon-Bibb County? There's a lack of affordable housing right here in this community. And when there's a lack of something, there's an opportunity for people to come in and take advantage. You have rent prices at $1,400 on something that I wouldn't even want my worst enemy to live in. And wages are not increasing. So people have to try to figure out what they're going to do. Who's going to speak up? Who's going to say something? Who's going to do something and say, this is wrong? We need regulation over housing. We need not any more senior towers. We need some more towers where a single mom of 4 can have a decent place to live without having to work 2 and 3 jobs and worry about if her lights are going to get turned off. So I charge you today, don't let it be just a vigil. Don't let it be just a march. Because when me and my sister and brother were struggling, while my mom and my stepdad went through their illness, there were people who were silent. They saw us. They knew we needed help. They knew my mom and dad were sick, but they didn't help. And I was angry about that for many years. And I had to resolve, you become the help that others need. And I hope as you're sitting in your classes, as you listen to your classmates share their story, that you decide, I will not be silenced. I will not sit back and idly watch the suffering and degradation of our communities. It starts locally, goes state, and then goes nationally. Decide today and use your voice and your influence the same way that this great man of God did. We have to believe in a social gospel that believes in the humanity of my brother and my sister who is next to me. Thank you.
We'd like to honor you all this afternoon. If you would come back to the table, please. Yeah. We will
would like to present this as a token of appreciation and admiration and inspiration to Miss Shanita Davis. This is a presentation from the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Living the Dream March of Tribute in appreciation to Miss Davis, our keynote speaker on this day, January 13th, 2022, and recognition of your inspirational words, Mercer University Minority Mentor Program, and the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. Thank you so very much. We love you, we celebrate you, and we appreciate you.
At this time, we're going to have the Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated Mercer Alumni Scholarship Award. If we could have Mr. Ken Blair, please.
I'll ask that the vice president of our chapter, Brother Kennedy, please come to assist as well. Good afternoon to Mrs. Artist, Dr. Booker, Ms. Small, Ms. Davis, community guests, the faculty, staff, students, and alumni of Mercer University. Dr. King shared, the function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. On behalf of Alpha Phi Alpha, the Epsilon Beta Lambda chapter, our chapter president in his absence, Brother Darius Maynard, I would like to present the 2021-22 Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated Mercer Alumni Scholarship Award to a young man whose intelligence plus character and his commitment to living the dream as a student leader here on Mercer's campus. At this time, we would like to present this award to Mr. Rylan Allen. Ryan, thank you for being an example here on campus. Thank you for being an example for both young men and young women. Continue to lead, continue to inspire, and continue to live the dream. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to have our closing remarks from Dr. Anzabeth.
Feel free to clap for me as I come up. Yes, you can. Yeah. All right. So we are on schedule. We're doing great. Greatly appreciate you all. So I'd first like to say thank you all to our attendees, honorees, distinguished guests, administrators in their presence for marching with us, and then again to our esteemed keynote speaker, Ms. Shanita Davis. As we reflect on the legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., we must remember the charge he gave all of us to keep. We must continue to strive for unity and diversity, not division. Equity, just not equality. Justice, not social injustice. Inclusion, not exclusion. And accessibility for all, not just the privileged few. We must continue to lift every voice and sing, to advocate for the marginalized and oppressed. We must all be co-conspirators in the fight for civil rights, social justice, democracy, and human rights. It is the time now to break our silence. We should no longer find comfort in our silence or that of our neighbors. To all my Mercerians and guests here today, you are the legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. You are the leaders of tomorrow. It is up to us to continue to live his dream. As Ms. David reminded us, you must become the help that others need. Let this be the mark in your life today to begin that journey for the change you want to see. We have to be the change in the world so that souls have a place to live. You must commit to truly being the bear that wants to change the world. I would now like to leave you with a few opportunities for this MLK weekend and MLK Day to continue to make sure that it's a day on and not a day off, as I remind you of these opportunities that we have. We have several service opportunities available this up and coming weekend. Please be sure to check Bear Post for that. We also will have the Food is Medicine on Orange Street. They still are looking for volunteers to serve in that capacity. Please check with Dr. Carol Brokros. There will also be a Macon community-wide breakfast on Monday, January the 17th at 8 a.m. at the Tubman Museum, and that will be followed by the MLK March and occasion at Rosa Park Square at 10 a.m. And lastly, we will also have a microaggressions workshop on January the 31st, featuring Dr. Daryl Sue from Columbia University from 5:30 to 7:30. Again, thank you for coming, and I will look forward to seeing you again in 2023. And I will now turn the mic back over to our MC, Ms. Nicole Small.
Last but not least, we will have our closing remarks from Mrs. Tracy Artis.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being with us today. I would just like to leave you all with these words and make a couple of announcements for students as well. Folks, our work is not over, which is why we themed this program, A Time to Break the Silence. Today is an opportunity to celebrate the civil rights movement codified victories, but our job is not done or complete. We have to do a lot more work to reach the mountaintop of which Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. dreamed. We should see today's observance as a moment for reflection and challenge in an ongoing struggle for justice. Let's not forget that birthed out of these rights for political and social freedom and equity came our TRIO programs. And on behalf of our TRIO programs, I would like to thank our Upward Bound students for being with us today. These are our high school students who serve and live in our community. We continue to fight for a leveling playing ground and playing field for all students on this campus, in our Macon community, and throughout this nation. The struggle and fight are not over. Dr. King said that our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Let's keep doing the work that Ms. Shanita Davis is doing in our community. Great speech today, Ms. Davis, and we appreciate you for being with us. Let's also continue the work of our ancestors and other great civil rights leaders. Thank you to the Mercer University administration, President Underwood, our student affairs leadership, Dr. Murphy and Dr. Doug Pearson. And then also I'd like to thank Mr. Ken Blair and the Epsilon Beta chapter for your scholarship and continued support of our TRIO programs and our Minority Mentors program. And they do represent Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, the fraternity of Dr. Martin Luther King. Thank you, Dr. Ansley Booker, Nicole Small, Danae Bruner, the MMP mentors for being with us today, OS ambassadors and mentees and other guests, and our virtual audience for your continued support. We encourage all of our students to participate in the Minority Mentors Student Success Conference on February the 25th. Each year, along with the Mercer African American Alumni Association, we award about 10 to 15 scholarships to first and second year minority students. An essay and attendance at the conference are required to receive the scholarship. Thank you again, and this ends our program for this evening. Stay safe. All right, also, I'd like to have our keynote speaker and other special guests to stay so we can take pictures. Thank you.